The storm arrived before Ilyra Voss could reach the village. One moment, the road beneath her boots was merely wet. The next, the mountain vanished behind a white curtain of rain. The wind tore the hood from her head, and lightning split the sky so close that the entire valley flashed silver. Ilyra stopped beneath a dying cedar and stared at the useless map trembling between her fingers. Perfect. Her voice disappeared beneath the thunder. Her phone had lost signal nearly 40 minutes ago. The last bus had abandoned the upper valley before sunset. The guest house she had planned to reach should have been somewhere beyond the ridge, but the road ahead had become a shallow river. Water soaked through her coat. Her dark auburn hair clung to her cheeks. Her suitcase wheel had broken 2 kilometers back, forcing her to leave most of her belongings beneath the awning of an abandoned roadside shop. And now her body was beginning to betray her. Hold tightened around her ribs. Her fingers shook. Worse, beneath the scent of wet earth and pine, she could feel the unmistakable warning of her omega instincts becoming agitated. Not heat, not yet. Stress, exhaustion, fear. She pulled her coat tighter and forced herself forward. There had to be a house somewhere. The valley could not be completely empty. Another flash of lightning illuminated iron fencing farther up the hill. Ilyra froze. Beyond it stood an enormous stone house overlooking the valley. Not a cottage, not a farmhouse, a mansion. 3 floors of dark slate and black timber rose against the storm. Warm amber light glowed from several windows. Tall pines surrounded the property, bending beneath the wind like frightened witnesses. Ilyra nearly laughed. Please be inhabited. She climbed the road. By the time she reached the gates, her breathing had become ragged. The gates were already open. That should have worried her. Instead, she stumbled through. A stone path led toward the front steps. Halfway there, the front door opened. A woman stepped outside, and Ilyra stopped walking. Even through the rain, she felt her. Alpha. Not merely alpha. Powerful alpha. The scent reached her despite the storm. Cedar smoke, black tea, cold mountain air, and something darkly floral beneath it. The woman stood beneath the covered entrance wearing black trousers and a fitted charcoal sweater, with the sleeves pushed to her forearms. She was tall. Very tall. Broad-shouldered without being bulky, with a long athletic frame and the kind of effortless posture that made the space around her seem smaller. Her hair was black, cut just below her jaw. Sharp cheekbones framed a face that might have looked severe if not for the faint scar running through her left eyebrow. Her eyes were an unusual pale gray. They moved over Ilyra once. Wet clothes, shaking hands, mud-stained boots. Then they hardened. "What are you doing outside?" It was not a greeting. It sounded like an accusation directed at the storm itself. Ilyra swallowed. "I got lost." The woman descended 2 steps. "You're freezing." "I noticed." The alpha's gaze narrowed. "Come here." Ilyra blinked. There was no hesitant smile, no nervous attempt to appear harmless. The alpha simply turned, opened the door wider, and expected obedience. Something deep inside Ilyra reacted before her pride could object. She climbed the steps. The instant she crossed the threshold, warmth surrounded her. Then a hand settled firmly at the center of her back. "Shoes!" Ilyra looked up. "What?" "Take them off. You're soaked." You're leaving water all over the floor." "Oh." Ilyra kicked off her boots. The alpha disappeared through another doorway and returned with a thick towel. She placed it around Ilyra's shoulders herself. Not delicately, efficiently. Then her hands closed around Ilyra's upper arms. Warm, steady, possessive enough that Ilyra's pulse jumped. "You're shaking." "I'm fine." "No, you aren't." The alpha looked directly into her eyes. "I don't like being lied to in my house." Ilyra forgot how cold she was for approximately 3 seconds. "Your house?" "Yes." "You live here alone?" The alpha's eyebrow rose. "Does that matter?" "Probably not, but it felt very important suddenly." Ilyra shook her head. "No." "Good." The alpha stepped back. "My name is Vaelora Senn." Ilyra stared. The name was familiar. Not personally. Professionally. Vaelora Senn owned half the land surrounding the Northern Valley. More importantly, she owned Senn Architectural Preservation, the firm responsible for restoring some of the oldest estates in the region. Ilyra had spent an embarrassing amount of time studying photographs of Vaelora's projects at university. She had never expected the owner to look like this. Ilyra Voss. Vaelora's gray eyes remained on her. "Ilyra." The way she said it sent warmth down Ilyra's spine. Vaelora turned toward the staircase. "Upstairs." Ilyra frowned. "Why?" "Because your clothes are wet." "I don't have anything else. My luggage is upstairs." Ilyra stared at her. Vaelora stared back. Neither moved. Then Vaelora's mouth curved. Barely. "You can continue standing there trying to challenge me, little Omega, or you can get out of those wet clothes before you become ill." Ilyra's face heated. "Did you just call me little Omega?" "I did." "You don't even know me." "Then perhaps stop giving me reasons to describe you accurately." Ilyra opened her mouth, closed it, then followed her upstairs. The house was beautiful, not lavish in the gaudy sense. Old wood beams crossed high ceilings, bookshelves filled entire walls, antique lamps cast pools of golden light across dark floors, enormous windows overlooked the storm. It felt less like a mansion and more like a fortress someone had taught to breathe. Vaelora led her into a bedroom. Her bedroom, Ilyra realized immediately. The alpha's scent was everywhere. Cedar, smoke, warm linen. Ilyra stopped inside the doorway. Vaelora opened a wardrobe. "Here." She removed a black cotton shirt and a pair of soft drawstring trousers. Ilyra eyed them. "Those are yours." "Yes." "I can't wear your clothes." Vaelora looked at her slowly. "Why?" Omega instinct screamed several answers at once. Because they smelled like her. Because wearing an alpha's clothes had meaning. Because Ilyra had known this woman for fewer than 10 minutes, and already the room seemed dangerously intimate. She settled for, "They're too big." Vaelora stepped closer. "Then roll the sleeves." The answer was so practical that Ilyra almost laughed. Vaelora reached for the towel around her shoulders and pulled it tighter. "Bathroom is through there. Hot shower. 10 minutes. "You give orders to everyone who appears at your door?" "Only the stubborn ones." Ilyra looked at her. Vaelora's expression remained calm, but her eyes had softened, slightly. "Go." Ilyra went. 10 minutes later, she emerged drowning in Vaelora's shirt. The hem reached nearly halfway down her thighs. The trousers had required 3 adjustments to stay around her waist. Her hair was damp, but no longer dripping. Vaelora waited outside the bedroom. She looked at Ilyra, then kept looking. For the first time since they had met, the alpha appeared momentarily caught off guard. Ilyra's pulse accelerated. "What?" Vaelora's gaze rose to her face. "My clothes suit you." Ilyra tried very hard not to smile. "They're enormous." "That wasn't what I said." A low warmth spread through her chest. Vaelora turned. "Kitchen." "You really enjoy ordering me around." Vaelora glanced over her shoulder. "And yet you keep following." Ilyra hated that she had no answer. The kitchen occupied the rear of the house, all dark wood and stone counters. A pot simmered on the stove. You were cooking? I was. For yourself? Vaelora paused. Yes. Something about the answer made Ilyra study her. There were 2 bowls on the counter. Vaelora noticed where she was looking. I always make too much. You expected someone? No. The answer came too quickly. Ilyra raised an eyebrow. Vaelora ignored her. Sit. Ilyra sat. The soup smelled incredible. Her stomach betrayed her with an audible growl. Vaelora's expression shifted into faint amusement. Fine? Ilyra sighed. Apparently not. Vaelora placed a bowl in front of her. Eat. There it was again, that commanding tone. And, disturbingly, Ilyra liked it. Not because she was incapable of deciding whether to eat soup. She liked the certainty. Vaelora didn't behave as though Ilyra were fragile simply because she was Omega. She saw a problem. Cold Omega, wet clothes, empty stomach. Then she fixed it. No ceremony, no performance, no exaggerated politeness that made Ilyra feel like a porcelain figurine. Ilyra tasted the soup. Her eyes widened. This is incredible. Vaelora sat opposite her. I know. Ilyra laughed. Actually laughed. Vaelora watched her. The sound faded. Their eyes held. Thunder rolled somewhere beyond the windows. For several heartbeats, neither woman moved. Ilyra looked away first. So, she said, how long does the storm usually last? Tonight? Yes. Vaelora glanced toward the windows. Until morning, if we're lucky. And if we're not? The lower bridge floods. Ilyra's spoon stopped. For how long? Could be a day. A day? Possibly 2. Ilyra stared. I have somewhere to be tomorrow. No, you don't. Ilyra blinked. Excuse me? The road will be unsafe. You don't know where I'm going. I know every road out of this valley. I have an interview. Vaelora leaned back. Where? Arden House. Something changed in her expression. Ilyra noticed. What? Vaelora said nothing. Do you know it? I own it. Ilyra's mouth fell open. Of course she did. Of course the terrifying alpha whose shirt she was currently wearing owned the restoration estate where Ilyra was supposed to interview for a 6-month archival residency. You're Vaelora Senn. I told you that. I didn't realize you were that Vaelora Senn. How many do you know? None. Vaelora's lips twitched. Ilyra pushed both hands through her damp hair. This is a disaster. Why? Because I'm supposed to interview with your company tomorrow morning, and instead I'm sitting in your kitchen wearing your trousers. Vaelora looked down at the trousers, then at her. I've had worse interviews. This isn't funny. I disagree. Ilyra groaned. I spent 3 weeks preparing. You walked through a thunderstorm to reach an interview. The bus canceled. You could have turned back. There wasn't another bus for 3 days. So you kept going. Yes. Vaelora studied her for several seconds. Then she said, You're hired. Ilyra stared. What? You're hired. You haven't seen my portfolio. I've seen your application. The spoon almost fell from Ilyra's hand. You read it? I read every finalist's application. You knew who I was? Not until you told me your surname. Vaelora leaned forward. You wrote a paper on structural memory and abandoned domestic architecture. Ilyra felt absurdly pleased. You remember that? I disagreed with half of it. Her pleasure vanished. Vaelora continued, but I remembered it. Ilyra narrowed her eyes. You can't just hire me because I got stranded at your house. I can hire you because your work is excellent. Then why was there an interview? To determine whether you were unbearable in person. And? Vaelora's gaze moved slowly over her. The jury is still considering. Ilyra smiled despite herself. Another crack of thunder shook the windows. The lights flickered. Ilyra instinctively jerked. Vaelora's eyes sharpened. "You don't like storms?" It wasn't a question. "I'm fine." Vaelora placed her spoon down. "Ilyra." Something in her voice erased the lie before Ilyra could repeat it. Ilyra lowered her gaze. "When I was young, a storm brought down part of our house." Vaelora went still. "My mother and I were trapped in the cellar until morning." There were no fathers in Ilyra's story. No brothers waiting outside. Her childhood had been a small household of women, fiercely protective of one another. Her mother had died years later, peacefully, but thunderstorms still dragged Ilyra back to the sound of timber cracking above her head. Another flash. Ilyra tightened her fingers around the spoon. Vaelora stood. She came around the table. Ilyra expected reassurance. Perhaps a soft sentence. Instead, Vaelora placed one hand on the back of Ilyra's chair and the other beneath her chin. She tilted Ilyra's face upward. "Look at me." Ilyra obeyed. "You are not in that cellar." Her voice was calm. "You're in my house." Lightning flashed again. Vaelora did not look toward it. "This house has stood through 87 winters." Ilyra breathed slowly. "You know that precisely?" "I restored it myself." Of course she had. Vaelora's thumb rested just beneath Ilyra's jaw. "Nothing is coming through those walls tonight." The certainty in her voice reached somewhere logic couldn't. Ilyra's shoulders loosened. Vaelora watched her until the tension faded. Then she released her. Not hurriedly. Not apologetically. She simply returned to her chair. Ilyra touched the place beneath her chin. "You do that often?" "What?" "Grab strangers' faces and order them to calm down." "I didn't tell you to calm down." "No." Vaelora lifted her spoon. "I told you where you were." Ilyra stared at her. Dangerous woman. Very dangerous. Not because Vaelora was cruel, because she understood exactly how to make an Omega feel protected without treating her like she was helpless. And Ilyra had never experienced anything like it. By 10 that evening, the rain had become violent. The bridge flooded. The electricity failed. Vaelora lit candles throughout the first floor and started a fire in the enormous stone fireplace. Ilyra sat curled on the sofa beneath a blanket, watching flames move across the logs. Vaelora stood by the windows with her phone. "No signal?" "Emergency line still works intermittently." "You called someone?" "The road maintenance coordinator." "A woman?" Vaelora glanced at her. "Everyone on the North Valley maintenance crew is." Ilyra smiled. "Good." Vaelora tilted her head. "Good?" "I'm tired of strange women warning me to be careful around men when I travel alone." Vaelora's expression turned completely serious. "You won't have that problem here." There was something satisfying about how definite she sounded. Vaelora set her phone down. "The bridge is closed until inspection. So I'm trapped. With me." Ilyra looked up. Vaelora stood in the candlelight, sleeves pushed to her elbows, black hair slightly disordered after carrying firewood inside. The words should have sounded ominous. Instead, they traveled directly down Ilyra's spine. "With you," she repeated. Vaelora's gaze darkened. Neither spoke. The fire cracked. Rain struck the windows. Ilyra suddenly became intensely aware of her own scent. Warm Omega. A little nervous. Far too interested. Vaelora clearly noticed too. Her nostrils flared subtly. Then she crossed the room. Ilyra's heart began pounding. Vaelora stopped in front of the sofa. "Move!" Ilyra blinked. "What?" "Over." "Oh." She moved. Vaelora sat beside her. Not in the armchair, not at the opposite side of the room. Beside her. Their thighs nearly touched. Ilyra looked down. You have an entire mansion. Yes. And you're sitting here. Yes. Why? Vaelora leaned back. Because you're afraid of storms. I said I don't like them. And because I want to. Ilyra looked at her. There was no embarrassment in Vaelora's face. No apology for the directness. You always say whatever you're thinking. When it's useful. And what are you thinking now? Vaelora's eyes moved to Ilyra's mouth. That you're wearing my shirt. Ilyra stopped breathing. Vaelora continued. That you smell increasingly comfortable in my house. Ilyra's cheeks burned. And that you're looking at me like you'd like me to do something about it. The thunder outside seemed very far away suddenly. Ilyra managed. You're extremely confident. I have reasons to be. Arrogant. Sometimes. Bossy. Often. Ilyra's voice lowered. Dominant. Vaelora turned fully toward her. Yes. That single word carried more weight than every careful alpha Ilyra had ever met. She had encountered dominant women before. At least, women who called themselves dominant. Most became uncertain the moment an Omega showed genuine interest. They would speak boldly and then retreat into endless hesitation, acting as though desire itself were dangerous. Vaelora was different. She watched, she decided, then she acted. Still, she was not reckless. There was control beneath everything she did. Ilyra liked that even more. What if I don't like being told what to do? Ilyra whispered. Vaelora's eyes gleamed. Then stop following my instructions. Ilyra opened her mouth. Vaelora waited. Ilyra had no response, because she had followed every single one. Vaelora smiled, slowly this time. There she is. Who? The Omega who's been trying to argue with me since she walked through my door. I was not trying. No, you were failing. Ilyra shoved her shoulder. Vaelora caught her wrist. Instantly. Ilyra froze. Vaelora's hand surrounded her wrist without effort. Not painful. Not loose either. Firm. Her thumb pressed against Ilyra's pulse. Ilyra's entire body warmed. Vaelora's expression changed when she felt how fast Ilyra's heart was beating. The playful edge vanished. Something deeper replaced it. Careful, Ilyra whispered. Why? Because I don't play games I don't intend to finish. Ilyra's Omega instinct surged. Vaelora released her wrist. Ilyra almost protested. Almost. Instead, Vaelora pulled the blanket higher around her. Bed. Ilyra stared. That was abrupt. You're exhausted. You're changing the subject. No. You absolutely are. Vaelora stood. I am deciding that you need sleep more than you need to discover how badly you're provoking me. Ilyra's lips parted. Vaelora bent slightly toward her. And before you mistake restraint for weakness, don't. The alpha's voice dropped. If I decide to pursue you, Ilyra, you will know. Then she straightened. Upstairs. Ilyra followed. Of course she did. Vaelora led her back to the master bedroom. Ilyra stopped. Where are you sleeping? Here. Ilyra blinked. Here? Vaelora looked around the room. It is my bedroom. I thought you'd give me this room. I am. Then where? The bed is large. Ilyra's Omega brain promptly stopped functioning. Vaelora began removing decorative pillows. You expected me to sleep somewhere else? A chair? Vaelora slowly turned. In my own bedroom? Ilyra tried not to laugh. When you say it like that. I own 17 chairs downstairs. Vaelora pulled back the covers. I am sleeping in my bed. Ilyra stared. With me. Unless you prefer another room, There are 6. The answer mattered. Vaelora wasn't banishing herself. She wasn't pretending the obvious attraction between them did not exist. She simply gave Ilyra an exit without turning herself into a nervous guest in her own home. Ilyra looked toward the dark corridor. Thunder rolled, then she looked at the enormous bed. Then Vaelora. "I'll stay." "I thought so." That sounded smug. "It was?" Ilyra climbed onto the mattress. Vaelora went to the bathroom. When she returned, she had changed into a dark, sleeveless shirt and loose black sleeping trousers. Ilyra had seen attractive women before. This was unreasonable. Vaelora's arms were toned from actual physical work, rather than decorative exercise. A faint line of old scars crossed one shoulder. Ilyra tried not to stare. Failed, Vaelora noticed. "Enjoying yourself?" "No." "Liar." Ilyra pulled the blanket up to her nose. Vaelora laughed softly. Then she climbed into bed beside her. The mattress shifted. Ilyra instantly felt the alpha's body heat. Neither woman touched. For approximately 30 seconds. Then lightning exploded outside. Ilyra flinched. Vaelora's arm wrapped around her waist. No discussion. No elaborate negotiations. Just warm strength pulling her across the mattress until her back rested against Vaelora's chest. Ilyra went still. Vaelora's voice sounded near her ear. "Breathe." Ilyra did. Vaelora's scent enveloped her. Cedar, smoke, safety. Her hand rested flat against Ilyra's stomach. Ilyra whispered, "You said I'd know if you pursued me. This isn't pursuit. What is it? Keeping you from shaking apart every time lightning hits." "I wasn't shaking apart." Vaelora tightened her arm. Ilyra melted backward involuntarily. The alpha made a quiet, satisfied sound. "Of course not." Ilyra smiled into the darkness. After several minutes, she said, "Vaelora?" "Yes?" "Why do you live alone?" Silence. Ilyra thought she might not answer. Then Vaelora said, "Because I don't enjoy people in my space." Ilyra glanced back. "You let a stranger into your bedroom. You knocked on my door looking half drowned." "So?" "So apparently I make exceptions. For pathetic omegas." Vaelora's hand slid slightly higher over Ilyra's ribs. "Don't call yourself that." The response came instantly. Strong enough that Ilyra became still. Vaelora continued more quietly. "You walked kilometers through a storm because you wanted a position you'd earned. You're stubborn, reckless, irritating, and apparently incapable of reading weather reports." "Thank you. But you're not pathetic." Something inside Ilyra softened. Vaelora's nose brushed lightly against her damp hair. "And don't use that word about my omega." Silence. Complete silence. Ilyra's heartbeat slammed against her chest. She turned carefully in Vaelora's arms. "What did you just say?" Vaelora did not retreat. "My omega." "You barely know me." "I know." "You can't just—" "I can say what I want." "That isn't how claiming works." "I didn't claim you." Vaelora's eyes were almost silver in the dim room. "I said what my instincts are already calling you." Ilyra swallowed. "And what if mine are calling you something too?" Vaelora's gaze dropped to her mouth. "Then say it." Ilyra couldn't. Not yet. Vaelora didn't force her. Instead, she pulled Ilyra close again. "Sleep." That sounds suspiciously like an order. "It is." Ilyra tucked her face against the alpha's chest. For the first time in years, she fell asleep during a thunderstorm without dreaming of collapsing walls. If you enjoy intense women who actually know what they want, then stay with Ilyra and Vaelora, because the storm outside was about to become the least dangerous thing happening inside that house. And if stories about powerful alphas and the omegas who make them lose control are your weakness, you already know what to do. Subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments which one of them you think is going to fall first. Because by morning, neither woman would be able to pretend this was just shelter from the rain. Ilyra woke to warmth. Too much warmth. She opened her eyes. Vaelora was asleep beneath her. Not beside her. Beneath her. At some point during the night, Ilyra had apparently turned, climbed halfway on top of the alpha, tucked one leg between hers, and buried her face against Vaelora's throat. Mortification arrived immediately. Ilyra began to move. An arm tightened around her waist. No. Ilyra froze. Vaelora's eyes remained closed. You're awake. Yes. I need to move. No. Vaelora. It's early. You're holding me hostage. Vaelora opened one gray eye. You climbed on top of me. That is unverified. My arm was asleep for 20 minutes. Oh. Stay. Ilyra stared at her. There it was again. Not timid. Not pretending she didn't want the closeness. Vaelora simply wanted Ilyra there, so she said so. Ilyra settled back down. 5 minutes. 20. 10. Accepted. Ilyra rested her head against Vaelora's shoulder. Outside, rain still whispered against the windows, but the violent thunder had passed. Bridge? She asked. Still closed. You checked? At 5. Why were you awake at 5? Habit. Ilyra lifted her head. What do you do at 5? Run. In this weather? Usually. That's deranged. Vaelora's mouth curved. Coming from the Omega who walked through a flooded valley. Fair. Ilyra traced the edge of the scar through Vaelora's eyebrow without thinking. Vaelora went very still. Ilyra withdrew her hand. Sorry. Vaelora caught it. No. She guided Ilyra's fingers back to the scar. You can touch me. The sentence struck harder than it should have. Ilyra traced the scar again. What happened? Roof beam. During restoration? Yes. That sounds painful. It was inconvenient. Ilyra laughed. You are impossible. Vaelora's gaze softened. I've heard that. From whom? Former employees. Former. They complained too much. Ilyra narrowed her eyes. Are you going to fire me? You haven't started yet. Good. Vaelora rolled suddenly. Ilyra gasped as her back met the mattress. The alpha braced herself above her. It happened so quickly that Ilyra's Omega instincts flared bright and hot. Vaelora stared down at her. Black hair falling toward one cheek. Gray eyes intent. Strong arms framing Ilyra's body. This was what Ilyra had wondered about last night. What dominant looked like when it stopped being theoretical. Vaelora lowered herself slightly. Not enough to trap her. Enough to make her presence unmistakable. Ilyra. Yes? You've spent approximately 12 hours challenging me. I have not. You have. Her mouth hovered near Ilyra's ear. You shove me. A little closer. You argue with every instruction. Closer. You stare at my mouth when you think I won't notice. Ilyra's breath caught. Vaelora shifted her weight. And now you're lying beneath me pretending you don't like where this is going. I didn't say that. No. Vaelora looked into her eyes. You didn't. Ilyra's courage flickered, then returned. What are you going to do about it? Vaelora smiled. Not sweetly, not politely, like an alpha who had just been given exactly what she wanted. This. She kissed her. No hesitation. No tentative brush followed by immediate retreat. Vaelora kissed her like she had decided the question had already been answered. One hand slid behind Ilyra's neck. The other remained braced beside her shoulder. Ilyra inhaled sharply, then reached for her. Vaelora deepened the kiss. Warm, controlled, demanding enough to make Ilyra's toes curl beneath the blanket. When Ilyra tugged at Vaelora's shirt, the alpha made a low sound against her mouth. Then Vaelora pulled away, only a few centimeters. Ilyra followed instinctively. Vaelora's eyes darkened. There. What? That. Ilyra was breathless. You chasing me? I was not chasing you. Vaelora leaned away another centimeter. Ilyra followed again. The alpha smiled. Ilyra glared. You're horrible. And you're very easy to tease. Vaelora kissed her once more. Shorter. Still possessive. Then she got out of bed. Ilyra stared after her in disbelief. Where are you going? Breakfast. You can't do that. Vaelora looked back. Do what? Kiss me like that and then leave. Vaelora folded her arms. You want another? Ilyra opened her mouth. Vaelora waited. Ilyra hated how warm her face became. Yes. The satisfaction in Vaelora's eyes was unmistakable. Come get it. Ilyra threw a pillow at her. Vaelora caught it easily, then laughed all the way to the bathroom. The bridge remained closed until the following afternoon. By then, Ilyra had stopped checking. Something about the house changed after the kiss. Or perhaps Ilyra did. She began noticing signs of Vaelora everywhere. Architectural sketches spread across a long work table. Stacks of books with notes tucked between pages. Half-finished cups of tea abandoned in strange places. A pair of old leather gloves near the back door. A ladder permanently leaning beside one bookshelf because Vaelora apparently refused to ask anyone else to retrieve books from the highest shelf. The intimidating alpha who owned half the valley had habits. Messy ones, human ones, and Ilyra found each new discovery dangerously endearing. After breakfast, Vaelora showed her the property. The rain had weakened to mist. They crossed a covered walkway toward an older east wing. This section isn't occupied, Vaelora explained. Why? Structural damage. Ilyra immediately forgot everything romantic. She stared upward at the beams. Original 18th century oak? Mostly. Mostly? North section was replaced after a fire. When? 41 years ago. Ilyra moved closer to a wall. Someone used modern filler here. Vaelora stopped. You noticed. It's the wrong texture. Vaelora watched her. Ilyra touched the plaster. And the moisture pattern suggests the drainage behind this wall is compromised. Silence. Ilyra looked back. Vaelora was staring. What? Nothing. That isn't nothing. Vaelora stepped toward her. You're attractive when you're working. Ilyra nearly dropped her notebook. Excuse me? You heard me. We are supposed to be discussing drainage. I can discuss two subjects simultaneously. Ilyra looked away. Vaelora stepped closer. Ilyra. Yes? Look at me. She did. You're blushing. You're my employer. Technically. That makes this complicated. Does it? Yes. Vaelora leaned one shoulder against the wall. Then don't work for me. Ilyra blinked. What? I want you at Arden House because you're talented. But if working for me means you think I can never touch you again, I'll refer your residency to another preservation foundation. You'd do that? Yes. Why? Vaelora's expression became serious. Because I won't use a contract to keep an Omega near me. Ilyra's chest tightened. Vaelora continued. If you're here, I want you here because you choose me. The words were direct, possessive without being controlling, strong without becoming a cage. Ilyra realized then that Vaelora's dominance had never been about taking choices away. It was about what she did after Ilyra made one. Once Ilyra stepped toward her, Vaelora did not retreat. Once Ilyra said yes, Vaelora acted like she meant it. That difference mattered. A lot. Ilyra closed the distance between them. I still want the residency. Good. And Vaelora waited. I still want you to touch me. Something flashed behind the Alpha's eyes. Good. Vaelora caught her waist and lifted her onto the edge of the broad work table. Ilyra yelped. Vaelora! You said you wanted me to touch you. I wasn't expecting to be picked up. You should begin expecting things. The Alpha stepped between her knees. Ilyra's pulse raced. Vaelora placed both hands on the table beside her hips. Tell me if you want me to stop. The sentence was quiet. Clear. Then the hesitation disappeared. She kissed Ilyra again, harder than before. Ilyra grabbed the front of Vaelora's sweater. The Alpha's body pressed between her knees. Ilyra's omega scent bloomed through the room. Vaelora broke the kiss abruptly. Her breathing had changed. For the first time, Ilyra saw strain in the Alpha's control. Your scent. Ilyra swallowed. What about it? Dangerous. That sounds dramatic. Vaelora's eyes narrowed. You have no idea. Ilyra tilted her head. Maybe I want one. One what? An idea. Vaelora stared. Then she laughed once beneath her breath. You really do enjoy provoking me. Maybe. Vaelora placed one hand against the back of Ilyra's neck. Then learned something. Her mouth brushed Ilyra's ear. I don't bluff. A shiver ran through Ilyra. Vaelora stepped back before things went further. This time Ilyra understood why. Restraint wasn't fear. It was control. That distinction made her want the Alpha even more. At noon, Vaelora received confirmation that the bridge inspection had begun. You'll probably be able to leave by 3, she said. Ilyra looked out the kitchen window. Right. Vaelora continued slicing vegetables. Neither spoke. The word leave sat between them. Ilyra should have been relieved. She had spent a night stranded in a stranger's house. Now she could continue toward Arden House. Simple. Except Vaelora wasn't a stranger anymore. Ilyra watched her hands. Strong hands. Hands that had wrapped around her waist. Held her through thunder. Lifted her onto a table. Ilyra looked away. Will you be at Arden House? Tomorrow. So I'll see you there. Yes. Another silence. Ilyra hated it. Vaelora stopped cutting. What? Nothing. Ilyra, she sighed. Stop using that voice. What voice? The one that makes me answer. Vaelora set down the knife. What is wrong? I don't want this to become weird tomorrow. Vaelora's face remained unreadable. Weird. You know what I mean. I don't. Ilyra folded her arms. We kissed. Several times. You held me all night. Yes. You called me your Omega. I remember. Ilyra's cheeks heated. And tomorrow I'll be at your company. Vaelora walked around the kitchen island. Ilyra remained still. Vaelora stopped directly in front of her. Do you think I intend to behave as though none of that happened? I don't know. Then you haven't been paying attention. Vaelora caught Ilyra's chin. I want you. Simple. Direct. Ilyra's breath stopped. I don't intend to hide it. Vaelora's thumb brushed her lower lip. And I don't intend to pretend you're merely another employee when we're alone. What about when we're not alone? I don't involve other people in private matters? Ilyra nodded. That seems reasonable. But understand something. Vaelora moved closer. Leaving this house doesn't end anything. Ilyra's heart pounded. Is that another order? No. Vaelora's mouth curved. That's a warning. The bridge opened at 4:12. Ilyra knew the exact time because she stared at Vaelora's phone when the message arrived. Road cleared. Vaelora read it, then looked at Ilyra. You can leave. The sentence sounded wrong. Ilyra hated that too. Right. Vaelora's jaw tightened. Neither woman moved. Finally, Ilyra said, You don't sound pleased. I am not. Why? Vaelora looked at her as though the answer should be obvious. Because I don't want you to leave. There it was. No games, no fake indifference. Ilyra's chest tightened. Then ask me to stay. Vaelora stepped forward. I don't ask for what I already know you want. Ilyra raised an eyebrow. Confident again. Yes. Vaelora stopped close enough that Ilyra could feel her warmth. Stay. Not please, not perhaps. Stay. Ilyra's omega instincts practically purred. For how long? Tonight. And tomorrow? I'll drive you to Arden House. And after that? Vaelora's eyes held hers. We'll decide. Ilyra smiled. Fine. Vaelora's hand closed around her waist. Fine? Yes. That's all. Ilyra laughed. What do you want? A better answer? Ilyra wrapped her arms around Vaelora's neck. I want to stay. Better. Vaelora kissed her. The second night was different. No storm, no fear, no excuses. They ate dinner beside the fireplace. Vaelora opened a bottle of berry tonic. Ilyra stole food from the alpha's plate. Vaelora threatened to remove her chair. Ilyra stole another piece just to test her. Vaelora did remove the chair. She pulled Ilyra directly onto her lap instead. You're ridiculous, Ilyra said. You wanted my food. I didn't request imprisonment. Vaelora's arm locked around her waist. You can leave. Ilyra made no attempt. Vaelora's mouth brushed her temple. I thought so. Later, they returned upstairs. This time, Ilyra did not hesitate at the bedroom door. Vaelora noticed. Progress. Don't ruin it. Vaelora closed the door behind them. Ilyra's pulse quickened. Vaelora crossed the room toward her. Slowly. There was something different in her expression. Intent. Ilyra backed up one step, then another, until her shoulders touched the wall. Vaelora stopped in front of her. You're nervous. A little. Do you want me to stop? No. Good. Vaelora kissed her. Ilyra instantly relaxed. The alpha's hands settled at her waist. The kiss deepened. Ilyra pulled Vaelora closer. Minutes blurred. Warmth. Breath. The intoxicating blend of alpha and omega scent filling the room. Vaelora's mouth moved along Ilyra's jaw. Ilyra tilted her head. Vaelora. The alpha paused. Yes? Don't become careful now. Vaelora looked at her. Explain. Ilyra gathered her courage. Every alpha I've dated does this. Does what? Acts dominant until things become real. Then suddenly I'm treated like I might shatter if someone touches me without writing a formal request first. Vaelora's expression flattened. I see. I don't want that. What do you want? Ilyra looked straight into her eyes. You. Vaelora became very still. The real version. Ilyra continued. The woman who tells me to get out of wet clothes because I'm freezing. The woman who sleeps in her own bed. The woman who picks me up when she wants me somewhere. Vaelora's eyes darkened. You're sure? Yes. You want dominant? Yes. Vaelora put one hand beside Ilyra's head. Then stop confusing dominance with carelessness. I don't. Good. Her other hand settled at Ilyra's hip. Because I will pay attention to you. The alpha's voice lowered. But I won't tiptoe around you. Ilyra's breath caught. I won't pretend I don't want you. Closer. I won't sleep in a chair because you're in my bed. Closer. And if you challenge me because you want a reaction. Vaelora's mouth hovered over hers. I will give you one. Ilyra whispered. Finally. Vaelora smiled, then kissed her until Ilyra forgot every clever response she had prepared. Morning came with sunshine, bright, cruel, practical sunshine. Ilyra stared at it with dislike. Vaelora entered the bedroom carrying coffee. "You look offended." The weather improved. "You preferred being trapped?" Ilyra accepted the cup. "Maybe." Vaelora sat beside her. "You aren't trapped." "I know." "Good." Ilyra leaned against her shoulder. "Are you always this serious about wording?" "Yes." "Architect." "Archivist." Ilyra smiled. After breakfast, they drove to Arden House. The estate stood 3 valleys east, a sprawling white stone structure surrounded by maple trees. Ilyra had seen hundreds of photographs. None captured it. She stepped from Vaelora's vehicle and stared. "Oh!" Vaelora came around the other side. "Disappointed?" "Are you insane?" "Occasionally. This is magnificent." The front facade curved around a central courtyard. Tall arched windows reflected blue sky. Scaffolding covered the western wing. Several women moved between workstations carrying plans and equipment. Ilyra's excitement overpowered everything else. She walked quickly toward the stairs, then stopped, turned. Vaelora remained beside the vehicle watching her. "What?" Vaelora shook her head. "Nothing. You're staring." "I know." "Why?" "Because you're happy." Ilyra's expression softened. Vaelora joined her. "Come." The residency began. And Ilyra discovered that working for Vaelora was both exactly and nothing like she expected. Vaelora was demanding, very demanding. She rejected weak research. She corrected careless measurements. She could look at a conservation report for 10 seconds and locate an inconsistency someone else had missed for 3 days. But she never humiliated anyone. She never yelled to perform authority. She simply expected excellence and gave the same. Within a week, Ilyra understood why the team respected her. Within 2 weeks, everyone understood something was happening between Vaelora and Ilyra. No one said anything. At least not while Vaelora was within hearing distance. The first person to mention it was Tressa Vail, the senior conservation specialist. Tressa was a beta woman in her 40s, with close-cropped silver hair and absolutely no instinct for subtlety. She approached Ilyra during lunch. "So?" Ilyra kept reading her notes. "No, I haven't asked anything." "You were about to." Tressa sat across from her. "Vaelora." Ilyra closed her notebook. "What about her?" "She hasn't fired anyone in 13 days. Ilyra blinked. "That can't be normal." "It is not." "Tressa." "And yesterday she brought pastries." "Maybe she wanted pastries." "She hates pastries." Ilyra tried not to smile. Tressa leaned closer. "Did you do something to her?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Interesting." "What?" "You're wearing her scarf." Ilyra looked down. Damn. Vaelora had wrapped it around her that morning because Ilyra complained about the temperature. "I own scarves." "Not that one." "How would you know?" "Because Vaelora has owned that scarf for 12 years. Ilyra stared. Tressa grinned. "Congratulations." "For what?" "Whatever terrifying thing you've awakened." Vaelora's voice came from behind them. "Tressa." Tressa stood instantly. "Vaelora. Don't you have a wall to examine?" "Several." "Then go admire them." Tressa disappeared with an expression of profound satisfaction. Ilyra looked up. "Were you listening?" "Yes." "You scared her." "No, I didn't." "You absolutely did." Vaelora bent toward her. "You're wearing my scarf." "You put it on me." "It looks good." Ilyra smiled. "Your reputation is collapsing." "Then stop smiling at me during work." "I can't." Vaelora stared. For half a heartbeat, the intimidating director disappeared. Her eyes softened. Then she straightened. My office. 6. Ilyra raised an eyebrow. Bossy. 6. Fine. Vaelora walked away. Tressa's head slowly appeared around a doorway. Ilyra threw a folded napkin at her. At 6, Ilyra entered Vaelora's office. The door closed behind her. Vaelora was standing by the window. You wanted me? Yes. For work? No. Ilyra smiled. That's efficient. Vaelora crossed the room. I haven't had you alone all day. Tragic. It has been irritating. Vaelora caught her around the waist. Ilyra laughed as she was pulled forward. You have absolutely no patience. I have significant patience. Evidence suggests otherwise. Vaelora kissed her. Ilyra immediately stopped arguing. When the kiss ended, Vaelora rested her forehead against hers. Come home with me. Ilyra smiled. I was planning to. Not tonight. Ilyra frowned. What? Vaelora's hands remained around her waist. I mean permanently. Silence. Ilyra stared. Vaelora. I know it's fast. Very. I don't care. Ilyra laughed in disbelief. You can't just tell someone to move into your house after 2 weeks. I just did. You're unbelievable. You spend every night there. That is different. How? It just is. Vaelora's face became serious. I hate when you leave in the morning. Ilyra's smile faded. Vaelora continued. I hate your things being divided between the residency cottage and my house. She touched the edge of Ilyra's scarf. I want your books in my library. Ilyra's chest tightened. Your terrible tea in my kitchen. Excuse me? Your clothes in my wardrobe. Ilyra stopped joking. Vaelora's voice lowered. I want you there. No elaborate speech, no performance, just truth. Ilyra whispered. You really don't do anything halfway. No. What happens if I say it's too soon? I drive you back to your cottage and ask again later. What happens if I say yes? Vaelora's eyes changed. You come home. Home. One word. Ilyra looked toward the window, then back. Okay? Vaelora went still. Okay? I'll move in. Vaelora kissed her so quickly Ilyra laughed against her mouth. Then the alpha lifted her entirely off the floor. Vaelora! You said yes. I know. You're coming home. I am currently in the air. Vaelora set her on the desk. Stay there. Ilyra stared. Why? I need the door locked. Ilyra burst out laughing. Living with Vaelora revealed even more contradictions. The alpha who could command an entire restoration team forgot where she left her glasses almost daily. She woke before dawn, but stayed in bed longer whenever Ilyra curled against her. She claimed not to like sweets, and then stole half of Ilyra's dessert. She owned a mansion and still repaired everything herself. One evening, Ilyra found her on the roof. Vaelora! The alpha looked down. What? What are you doing? Fixing a gutter. Get down! Vaelora stared. Ilyra folded her arms. Now! An expression of amusement appeared. You're ordering me? Yes. Vaelora climbed down. Ilyra waited. The moment her boots touched the ground, Ilyra grabbed her sweater. You could fall. I didn't. You could. Vaelora looked at her angry face, then kissed her forehead. Ilyra glared harder. That doesn't work. Vaelora kissed her again. It might. No. Again. Stop. Again. Ilyra tried not to smile. Failed. Vaelora murmured. There. You're manipulative. Effective. Life became that. Arguments that ended in laughter. Long nights over architectural plans. Slow mornings tangled together beneath blankets. Ilyra gradually moved into every part of the house. First her clothes, then her books, Then plants appeared on windowsills. Vaelora complained that the bedroom looked like a greenhouse. 2 weeks later, she built Ilyra a set of custom plant shelves. Ilyra discovered them when she came home. She stood staring. "You built these?" Vaelora looked up from her desk. "Yes." "You complained about my plants." "I complained about them occupying the floor." Ilyra touched the polished wood. "You measured the pots. They needed to fit." Ilyra turned. Vaelora was pretending to read. "Come here." Vaelora looked up. "That sounds like an order." "It is." The alpha's eyebrow rose. Then she stood. Ilyra wrapped her arms around her. "Thank you." Vaelora held her tightly. Her mouth touched Ilyra's hair. "You're welcome." A month passed, then 2. The first real conflict arrived on an ordinary Tuesday. Ilyra returned from Arden House late. Vaelora was waiting in the kitchen. That alone was unusual. "What happened?" Ilyra asked. Vaelora held up an envelope. Ilyra stopped. She recognized it. A fellowship application. 6 months abroad. She had applied before arriving in the valley and completely forgotten. "You opened my mail?" "No, it was addressed to me." Ilyra frowned. Vaelora handed it over. Senn Architectural Preservation had received the verification request because Ilyra listed them as her current employer. "Oh. You applied for a fellowship in Senn." "Before I came here." "For 6 months." "Yes." Vaelora's expression was controlled. Too controlled. "You didn't mention it." "Because I forgot." "You forgot about leaving the country for half a year?" "I didn't expect to get shortlisted." "You were shortlisted?" Ilyra winced. "The email arrived this morning." "And you weren't going to tell me?" "I was." "When?" "Tonight." Vaelora looked away. That hurt more than anger would have. Ilyra stepped closer. "Vaelora, do you want it?" "I don't know." "That's not an answer." "I genuinely don't know." Vaelora's jaw tightened. "The program is prestigious." "I know." "You should go." Ilyra stared. "What?" "You should go." The words came cold, immediate, too immediate. Ilyra understood. Vaelora was protecting herself, and suddenly she hated it. "No." Vaelora looked at her. "No?" "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Decide for me because you're afraid I'll decide against you." Vaelora's eyes flashed. "I am not afraid." "Liar!" Silence. Dangerous silence. Vaelora stepped forward. "Ilyra." "No, you don't get to use the voice now." The alpha stopped. Ilyra's chest rose and fell. "You taught me something." "What?" "That dominance isn't making choices for someone." Vaelora's face hardened. "I know." "Then stop." "I am not stopping you. You're pushing me out before I can choose to stay." That landed. Vaelora went still. Ilyra continued more quietly. "I haven't decided whether the fellowship matters more than what we're building here. You should not give up your career for me. And you should not sacrifice us to prove you're supportive." Vaelora looked toward the window. Ilyra crossed the distance. "Look at me." The alpha didn't. Ilyra almost smiled despite being angry. "Interesting." Vaelora finally looked down. "What?" "You don't like being ordered around." "No. Neither do I when the order is stupid." Vaelora exhaled. Ilyra placed both hands on her face. "I love you." Everything stopped. It was the first time either of them had said it. Vaelora's entire expression changed. Ilyra's anger vanished beneath sudden vulnerability. "I love you," she repeated. Vaelora's hands closed around her wrists. "You're sure?" "Yes." Vaelora pulled her forward so hard Ilyra collided with her chest. "I love you too." The words came against her hair, low, almost fierce. Ilyra wrapped both arms around her. Vaelora held her as if she could keep the entire world outside the kitchen by strength alone. After a long moment, Ilyra said, "I'm still considering the fellowship." Vaelora made a displeased sound. Ilyra laughed softly. "But I'll decide." "Yes." "Not you." "Yes." "Good." Vaelora tilted her face upward. "You're becoming difficult. I learned from you." Vaelora kissed her. Ilyra declined the fellowship 3 days later. Not because Vaelora asked, she didn't. In fact, the Alpha printed the program information, researched housing options, and calculated travel logistics without saying a word. That was what helped Ilyra decide. She realized the fellowship represented the career she thought she wanted before Arden House, but the Valley offered something better. Not just Vaelora, work she genuinely loved. A restoration project that could occupy years. A community of brilliant women. A place where her research mattered. A home. She sent the decline email, then walked into Vaelora's office. "I'm staying." Vaelora looked up sharply. "Because of me?" "Partly." Vaelora frowned. Ilyra laughed. "That's allowed." "I don't want you regretting—" Ilyra walked around the desk and sat directly on her lap. Vaelora stopped speaking. "Better?" "Significantly. I am staying because I want this life." She touched Vaelora's cheek. "And you're part of that life." Vaelora's hands settled around her hips. "A large part?" "Annoyingly large." "Acceptable." Ilyra kissed her. Winter arrived early. Snow covered the valley. The house became even more beautiful. Fires burned in nearly every occupied room. Ilyra developed a habit of working on the floor in front of the library fireplace. Vaelora complained that desks had been invented for a reason. Then she began sitting on the floor beside her. One evening, Ilyra looked up from her notes. Vaelora was reading. Firelight moved across her profile. The sight made Ilyra's chest ache. Alpha. Vaelora looked up immediately. Ilyra rarely called her that directly. Something in Vaelora's eyes sharpened. "Yes, Omega?" Ilyra smiled. "Come here." Vaelora closed the book. She moved closer. Ilyra took her hand. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous." "Quiet." Vaelora's mouth curved. Ilyra traced her knuckles. "You called me your Omega the first night. I remember. Before we had any right to use those words. I had instinct. You had arrogance. That too." Ilyra laughed, then became serious. "I think I'm ready." Vaelora went very still. "For what?" "You know." The Alpha's scent changed instantly. Deeper, warmer. "Say it." Ilyra's pulse raced. "For you to claim me." Silence filled the library. Vaelora didn't move. Ilyra's courage wavered. Then Vaelora placed the book aside. She took both Ilyra's hands. "When?" Ilyra blinked. "That's your response?" "Yes." Ilyra laughed nervously. "I don't know. Soon?" "Tonight." Her breath caught. "Tonight? You said you're ready." "I am." "Then tonight." There was the Alpha Ilyra knew, not delaying something they both wanted for the sake of unnecessary drama. Vaelora stood, then pulled Ilyra up with her. "You're certain?" It was a statement seeking truth, not timid permission. Ilyra stepped into her arms. "Completely." Vaelora's expression softened. "Good." She lifted Ilyra. Ilyra laughed. "You really enjoy doing that?" "Yes." "Why?" Vaelora carried her toward the staircase. "Because every time I do, you grab onto me." Ilyra tightened her arms around her neck deliberately. "Like this?" Vaelora looked at her. "Exactly." The snowstorm arrived that night. Not rain this time. Snow. Thick flakes struck the windows while wind moved through the pines. Ilyra stood in the bedroom wearing one of Vaelora's shirts again. The same way everything had begun. Vaelora approached from behind, her arms wrapped around Ilyra. "Do you remember the first night?" How could I forget? You were soaked. You were terrifying. I was helpful. You ordered me upstairs after knowing me for 5 minutes. You needed dry clothes. You called me Little Omega. You were little. Ilyra turned in her arms. And now? Vaelora's gray eyes searched her face. Now you're mine. Ilyra's pulse jumped. Vaelora touched her cheek. And I'm yours. The second half mattered just as much. Ilyra smiled. Yes. Vaelora kissed her slowly. The snow continued falling. The mountain disappeared beyond the windows. Inside, there was only warmth. Home. Alpha. Omega. Choice. Devotion. The next morning, Ilyra woke in Vaelora's arms with the unmistakable feeling that something fundamental had shifted. Not ownership. Belonging. Chosen belonging. Vaelora opened her eyes. Morning. Ilyra smiled. Morning. The Alpha touched the mark at Ilyra's neck with almost reverent care. You're staring. Yes. Why? Vaelora's expression softened. My Omega. Ilyra's heart melted. Your Omega. Vaelora kissed her forehead, then started to get out of bed. Ilyra caught her shirt. No. Vaelora looked back. No. You made me stay in bed the first morning. I did. My turn. Vaelora raised an eyebrow. You're ordering your Alpha? Yes. A pause. Then Vaelora climbed back beneath the blanket. Ilyra grinned. That worked? Temporarily. She immediately pulled Ilyra beneath her. Ilyra burst out laughing. Cheater! You wanted me in bed? This isn't what I meant. I disagree. And the snow kept falling. Spring transformed the valley. By then, Ilyra had been living with Vaelora for nearly 8 months. Arden House's western wing reopened. Ilyra's archival research became the foundation for a new conservation program. Vaelora offered her a permanent position. Ilyra rejected the first version of the contract because Vaelora underpaid her compared with what competing institutions were offering. Vaelora stared at the red corrections. You revised my contract. Yes. You increased your salary. Yes. By 20%. I am excellent. Vaelora stared another second, then smiled. 30. Ilyra blinked. What? I'll give you 30. You're impossible. You said you're excellent. I am. Then don't negotiate against yourself. Ilyra laughed. Fine. Vaelora signed. Their relationship settled into something powerful and surprisingly ordinary. They fought about dirty cups. They argued about whether Ilyra needed another bookshelf. She did. Vaelora built one anyway. They spent weekends exploring forgotten properties throughout the valley. They hosted dinners for the women working at Arden House. Tressa never stopped making comments. Vaelora never stopped threatening to assign her to roof inspections. And every time rain began tapping against the windows, Ilyra remembered the night she first arrived. One summer evening, another storm rolled across the mountains. Ilyra stood at the front window watching rain blur the driveway. Vaelora came behind her. You're thinking? Yes. About? The first night. Vaelora's arms wrapped around her waist. You looked terrible. Ilyra gasped. Romantic. You were covered in mud. You could say I looked beautiful. You did. Ilyra turned. Vaelora smiled slightly. You looked beautiful and furious. Better. You glared at me because I told you to remove your shoes. You were bossy. I remain bossy. Very. Lightning flashed beyond the mountains. Ilyra didn't flinch. Vaelora noticed. You're not afraid anymore. Sometimes I am. But. Ilyra leaned against her. You're here. Vaelora's expression softened. Then someone knocked on the front door. Both women froze. Another knock. Ilyra looked at Vaelora. Are you expecting anyone? No. Vaelora opened the door. A drenched young beta woman stood beneath the entrance canopy, soaked from head to toe. "My car broke down," she said miserably. "I saw lights." Ilyra and Vaelora exchanged a look. Ilyra smiled. "Come inside." The woman stepped in. Vaelora immediately pointed toward the floor. "Shoes." Ilyra covered her mouth to hide a laugh. Vaelora looked at her. "What?" "Nothing. You're laughing." "I remembered something." The stranded traveler removed her shoes. Ilyra grabbed a towel. Vaelora looked toward the storm. "The road will probably flood." The visitor's eyes widened. "You mean I'm stuck here?" Ilyra leaned against Vaelora, the Alpha's arm automatically wrapped around her waist. Ilyra smiled. "There are worse places." Vaelora looked down. Their eyes met. 8 months vanished. For a moment, Ilyra was once again the soaked Omega standing at a stranger's door. Except now the stranger was home. A year after the storm, Vaelora took Ilyra back to the hill where she had first seen the house. They stood beneath the cedar tree. The weather was clear. The valley spread below them in endless green. Ilyra looked at the house in the distance. "You planned this?" "Yes." "Why?" Vaelora reached into her coat pocket. Ilyra stopped breathing. "Oh." Vaelora's eyebrow rose. "Oh?" Ilyra stared at the small ring in her hand. "Vaelora." The Alpha stepped closer. "I am not kneeling." Ilyra laughed through sudden tears. "I didn't expect you to." "Good." Vaelora took Ilyra's left hand. "I don't have a long speech." "Also expected." "I love you." Ilyra smiled. "I know. You turned my house into a home." Her throat tightened. "You challenged everything I thought I wanted." Vaelora's thumb brushed across Ilyra's knuckles. "You made me happier than I knew how to ask for." Ilyra's eyes filled. "And I want every year I have left to belong to the life we're building?" Vaelora held up the ring. "Marry me." Not a trembling question. Not uncertain. A declaration with enough space for Ilyra's answer. Ilyra laughed. "Yes." Vaelora slid the ring onto her finger. Ilyra threw her arms around her. Vaelora lifted her immediately. "Seriously? You said yes. That doesn't mean you have to carry me down the mountain?" "It might." Ilyra kissed her. "Dominant Alpha. Stubborn Omega. You're stubborn Omega." Vaelora's expression softened. "My Omega." Their wedding happened in autumn. At the house. Of course. The ceremony was small. Only women from their lives. Tressa cried openly and denied it afterward. The restoration crew filled the garden with lanterns. Ilyra wore ivory. Vaelora wore black. When Ilyra walked toward her, the Alpha who had faced collapsing roofs, winter storms, impossible deadlines, and furious clients without blinking, looked utterly stunned. Ilyra reached her. "You're staring." "Yes." "You should say something romantic." Vaelora took her hands. "You're mine." Ilyra laughed softly. "Possessive. Always." "And?" Vaelora leaned closer. "And I'm yours?" "Better." They kissed beneath golden leaves. That evening, rain began. Of course it did. Ilyra stood by the same bedroom window in Vaelora's arms. "My wife," she said experimentally. Vaelora smiled against her hair. "Again?" "My wife." The Alpha tightened her arms. "Again?" Ilyra turned around. "You're enjoying this far too much." "Yes." She kissed Vaelora. "Wife." Vaelora pulled her closer. "Omega." Ilyra grinned. "Alpha." Thunder rolled far away. Neither woman looked toward it. The house stood strong around them. The same walls that had sheltered a soaked stranger now held photographs, books, plants, unfinished projects, arguments, laughter, and 2 lives woven so tightly together that neither woman could remember what silence had sounded like before. Ilyra sometimes thought about how easily she could have missed it. If the bus had continued. If the rain had begun 20 minutes later. If she had chosen another road. If fear had convinced her not to approach the iron gates. Instead, she had knocked. And Vaelora had opened the door. Not gently, not hesitantly. She had looked at the drenched Omega on her steps and said, "Come here." That was Vaelora. She did not tiptoe around the things she loved. She protected them, challenged them, made room for them, held them fiercely without turning that hold into a cage. And Ilyra had learned that surrender did not have to mean weakness. Sometimes it meant trusting someone strong enough to catch you without ever demanding that you stop being yourself. Years later, when storms came across the valley, Ilyra still occasionally woke during the night. But she no longer woke afraid. She woke with Vaelora's arm around her waist, usually with the alpha taking up far too much of the bed. One night, Ilyra nudged her. "Move." "No. You're on my side. Our side. Vaelora." The alpha pulled her closer without opening her eyes. "Sleep." Ilyra smiled into the darkness. "You're still bossy." "Yes." "Arrogant." "Yes." "Possessive." A pause. Then Vaelora murmured against her hair. "With you?" Her arm tightened. "Absolutely." Ilyra closed her eyes. Outside, lightning illuminated the mountains. Inside, she was warm, safe, loved, exactly where she wanted to be. And this time, when the dominant alpha told her to stay, Ilyra had no intention of ever leaving. If Vaelora and Ilyra's story made you smile, tell me in the comments which moment won you over. The first night in the storm, Vaelora refusing to give up her own bed, or the moment Ilyra finally told her alpha exactly what she wanted. Subscribe and support the channel with a like if you want more romantic alpha-omega stories about powerful women who actually act like powerful alphas, and omegas who are strong enough to choose them. Because sometimes the greatest love story begins with nothing more than a storm, an open door, and one uncompromising alpha saying, "Stay."